This video is for Apex Legends players on console. I mean, technically if you're on PC, you could utilize this tip as well. We're going to be hopping into the test range in just a moment, but I want to provide a little context because it does lay the foundation. Everyone's always commenting on the videos about the mechanical side of things, wanting to improve your aim. And it seems like there's an incorrect focus on just improving only your aim or movement. The problem is, how are you supposed to know what aspect of your aim to improve upon if you lack good positioning or game sense? If you're on console, watch this video and say, I already knew this and I already have amazing positioning, please comment down below. I expect to either see a lack of comments about mastery over positioning or lots of people saying that they got it down pat. I kind of want to know where the community stands on this. My experience from coaching, though, console players, is the lack of positional awareness and how much space their character model occupies. This is so important because depending on your hitbox size, you're either making the game easier or harder for your opponent. You want to opt for the latter and want it to be more difficult for your opponent. Once you know this concept down, get the jump, and with better positioning, you'll know the distance you need to actually aim train at. So now let's go into the test range and showcase an exercise you really need to only do a few times just to get the weight of positioning. Alright, now in this portion of the video, this is for console players, but you can do this if you're on PC. My theory is that most PC players have a general understanding of this because they play games like Valorant and CSGO. Now, if you're on console, you don't really have access to those type of FPS shooters. They're not necessarily the highlight. You mostly see people in Call of Duty and vice versa, but this tip can definitely apply to those other games as well. So what we're going to do is you're going to use Mirage. You're going to hold the decoy there, and then what you're going to do is you're going to move it around. This is an example of the best positioning that you can possibly have. So I'm going to back up the decoy just a little bit. And you can see just how small that hitbox is, right? So if I release a decoy and I look at that hitbox and I stand right here in the same spot, you'll know just about how small that hitbox is and the fact that they can still see over that cover. This is a really, really strong spot. Whenever I do coaching, I actually cover that quite a bit. So we're going to cover some more areas. I'm actually going to grab myself a sniper scope so you can really, really see this. And we're going to cover an area on the map that may not be as intuitive in terms of finding cover. You have to understand your hitbox size, and it's really, really key to ensure that you win encounters. So actually, we're not even going to jump cut. We're going to look at various angles and various positioning, what it looks like when somebody wide peeks out. You have to understand your hitbox size. You need to really understand the full weight of it. Let's say you are out in the open here. It seems like there's nowhere to play. I actually was doing a coaching exercise just recently and I highlighted, said, where do you go? And it's like, well, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to play. Well, here's a great example. So we're going to put the, oh, it looks like our little Mirage clone got disappeared there. So let's bring him right back. What we're going to do is we're going to bring our little Mirage clone here. We're going to hold him there for a second. And we're going to stand out what would be a game-winning spot. Let's just say like the team is holding this open area. Technically, they could use cover, but if they're going and the zone is pulling towards them, they don't need to necessarily do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to control this. Now look what happens when they crouch. They are gone. They have such a great opportunity here. And look how small the hitbox is, and look where they go. Completely gone. Completely gone from their POV, and all they have is a head. But if you switch the POVs, and we switch this back and put the decoy right here, and we look back at this opposite point of view, if you're on console, you got to do this. Go into the test range and just understand your hitbox and understand positioning. It's so important. This is the biggest, and look at this. You see how we were just doing this a second ago, peeking and using the crouch, moving down, and how there's space that doesn't exist? Even if you were to use weird geometry like this, let's say an angle right here is much better to take this encounter, specifically if you're on console, and I put the Mirage clone here, and we move forward, this is way more beneficial to really help you master your positioning. Let's take a look at the Mirage clone. See how the only thing available is really the head? Now, the other tip I'll provide if you're on console is that you need to duck and weave. So you need to be able to crouch up and down and crouch peek, essentially. Let me show you what that looks like. So let's say you have the low ground, right? This is another exercise I've done while I've coached before. If I can get my poor little Mirage clone in here. There we go. So let's say our Mirage clone is right out in the open, and we were picking on them essentially. So we call this a crouch peek. Essentially, either I prefer to use just toggle. No, sorry, not toggle, hold. So this is hold. I'm holding the button down. I also have toggle bound as well. But for toggle, what you can do is you can go for a peek and just kind of toggle peek when you know where they're located. Now the opposite end, when you're using this type of geometry, look what it looks like when somebody's peeking up and down. You want to incorporate a left and right movement, but even if you're on console, even just doing a jump peek like that can be very beneficial. So let me show you what that looks like from the other POV. So while I may be out in the open, let's say I wide cut this angle right here. And let's control the decoy. And I crouch up and down. Look how small the hitbox is. And the further back I go, the smaller the hitbox it is. Realistically, because they can still look down on me. If I can see them, they can see me. And that's the beauty of this type of positioning and this type of angles. You never know what type of angle you're going to find. And here's another interesting one. Even though it seems like there's not a lot of space that exists out here, throw your Mirage clone out and say, how much of the Mirage can I see? Here's a really great example. Technically here, you would think that you wouldn't be able to see your opponent, or that you would, excuse me, that they would be, they wouldn't be able to shoot over that, right? Let me go back all the way over here and let me show you. You'll be amazed at what you can do. See how their head peeks out this way? I'm going to put the Mirage clone this way and you can see the other POV. This is a great exercise, especially if you don't have any friends. Makes me cry. All right, so let's go all the way back and let's go take a look. It's just a great exercise. Just do this and understand the space that they occupy. Look at that. See how I can crouch? What that looks like? This was an open field before. Right? This was literally an open field, and look what happens when I have this angle. If I move the Mirage clone just a little further back, look at that. Still a game-winning spot. That's not half bad. You can still do the same thing at this angle. You wouldn't think that this would be a game-winning spot located here. Let me blow your mind even further in terms of how you should cut angles. I'm going to put the Mirage clone back up here. I'm going to show you what it looks like from both POVs, and this is going to up your game immensely. If I see console players start to play this smart, you will have the advantage on every single PC player. In general, I mean, you just will, because you'll get the jump on them. So you realize, look at this as I cut this angle. Look how I'm using this spot right here, that little nook. I'm going to move the Mirage clone a little further and move them over to the right until I run into them. Ready? So let's say I was wide peeking. Look how small the hitbox is. Now remember, when somebody wide peeks out, I'm going to put the Mirage clone right here on what that looks like. Because normally when somebody peeks out, you would see them kind of wide out in the open. And we're going to cover that at the very end here in terms of positioning. Let me show you what that looks like. So you see here, you see how only their head is peeking out? Granted, he's putting out his hand. Mirage, what are you doing? Please stop doing that. You're making my example look bad. But look at that. Most of their hitbox is pretty free. And look at him. He's being so snarky, pointing right back at us. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, this is another mistake I see console players do. But you see how that's clever positioning. It's very smart. Most console players that I see, and it's just an awareness thing. Partly because you're playing maybe more casual, and maybe PC players might be sweaty, or maybe not. Maybe it's the type of the games that they play. But most PC player or console players will wide peek out and just kind of try to beam you out in the open. When realistically, you want to jiggle peek almost like this to at least get the first opening shot. Say I was right here. You want to be able to be close enough to the wall to at least get a peek. Remember how we're talking about that crouch from before and how you duck and weave and move in and out? That's how you do it. This video is very important. Please let me know in the comment section if this is helpful. I've been trying to think of ways, because I know I can't get to everyone in terms of coaching, but I want to be able to help as much as humanly possible. And I feel like doing this, because I stayed up late at night, I'm thinking like, what can I do to help the console players more in terms of positioning outside of VOD reviews and spectating lobbies? Seeing is believing in terms of hitbox. If you can see it, you'll continue to believe it in terms of how small you can make your hitbox and how difficult it can be to hit. We can do the same thing all the way up here. Even though this is game-winning spot right here, if you make your hitbox as small as possible, you'll just be laughing. You're winning. You're winning because you're making your hitbox small. So what we're going to do, I'm going to control. Let's back up. He might actually fall, so I'm going to try to be careful with that. Let's crouch. Let's release decoy. All right, okay, let's pick it back up again. But this is experimentation you should do. He might fall, and that'll be unfortunate. Yeah, I think he fell. Oh, there we go. Actually, that's pretty good. Okay, well, you just got to experiment with it, because there's a spot all the way up here that you essentially think, how can I make my hitbox small by backing up just a little bit and making my POV as small as possible. Hopefully this video is helpful for anybody out there. Comment down below. Let me know. Good exercise to do. Good ways to understand how much space your character occupies by using Mirage in a clever, unique way in the test range. Do this experiment. Understand it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.